Hey, good morning, everyone. I want to share some very positive perspectives this morning or today, whichever time you're viewing this, on where we are and where we should be and where we hope to be. But with that, we look at our lives today as being very complicated. We've gone through a very heated political season, and I don't recall in my adult years ever seeing something so chaotic and frenzied with certainly polarized opinions, but that's where we are. Getting through that, we still have COVID is still dominating our lives, is keeping our members from our senior centers. It has the potential of keeping our loved ones away from us, having contact with them. And as we enter the holidays, it makes it even more complicated. How are we going to have Thanksgiving or Christmas with COVID still looming? So those are some of the concerns that we have, and we're kind of thrown off balance by all this. But this morning, I don't want to talk about that. I want to emphasize the positive things that are going on right now with me and with you. And kind of offer my own personal perspective. I'll start by offering a quotation, or rather a quote from Albert Schweitzer, Dr. Albert Schweitzer, and some of you recall that name, I'm sure. But he says, eventually all things fall into place. Until then, laugh at the confusion, live for the moments, and know that everything happens for a reason. Now, I wasn't the type of person who would subscribe to that kind of thinking about everything happening for a reason. I thought that when someone were to stray out into traffic and get hit by a car, the reason for that is because they weren't paying attention. There was a reason there, certainly, but there are a lot of things that go unanswered that are happening in the world that I don't see on the surface a reason for it. But as I have grown older, I can really relate to the possibility of rationale or something bigger than what I can see. And I can best say that or explain that by talking about a museum. The museum is in New York City. It's called the Guggenheim Museum. And what's unique about it, there's no stairs, and it's kind of circular with a hollow center. And if you're going into the museum, you can go around this gently instead of stairs, but it's more of a ramp that goes around and around. And you can look down and see where you've been in the different floors underneath. And then, of course, you can go off into the doors that are around each of the levels. But again, it's as you go up and higher, you can still look down and see everything. But one time they had an exhibit there, and we all know what twine is, right? Twine is colored yarn or string, a little tougher than yarn. Well, they had an exhibit there that was, that kind of covered the center of the hollow portion of the museum. And this twine, the colored twine, ran left and right, across, back and forth on all the levels of the museum. And it was very difficult to come in there and see it because it was a mess as you're looking up at all the twine. It didn't seem like it had a lot of reason or rationale to it. Maybe some eclectic form of art is what most people thought. But as they went around and began to go higher and higher into the museum, they could look out over the middle part where they could see the layers of twine, and they began to slowly form a picture. And you really couldn't see the whole picture until you were on the top level and looking down as the lights from different levels lit up the twine to where it formed a big picture. And I've thought about that many times, that this is how we look at life. We're somewhere on that first floor and we're kind of looking up at it, and it doesn't make a lot of sense until we're at a different place and we're able to look back at where we were. We can see somehow there was a plan and a purpose in all the things that had happened in our lives. I think this is the artist's intention of that one exhibit at the Guggenheim Museum. We also need to remember that life is kind of a journey that we're all going on together. Sometimes we're at different speeds. I know that I am now. But we're looking at this journey of life. We need to really be able to experience the joys and sometimes the sad moments as well. I think when we experience sad times in our lives, maybe the passing of a relative or a friend, we are able to grieve and mourn. But what happens there is we're distinguishing between this real sadness and what the joyful parts of our lives were. And we won't be able to recognize the good times until we experience the bad times. The author Emily Dickinson had these words to share. She says that hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings in tune without words and never stops at all. She's referring to hope. Hope was this thing with feathers, and it perches in the soul and sings the tune that has no words and never stops at all. In our deepest struggles in our lives, we find that we have strength. When we deny we have strength, it's always there. Our wounds sometimes inspire us. They make us wiser. And we can sometimes turn that pain into medicine because it gives us hope in the future. And with that, we should never stop looking up. And that's the secret, I think, to living a happy and a good life, or at least one of the secrets, is perhaps maybe not a secret at all. But there's a lot to see and experience in our lives if we just stop and listen. We should never limit ourselves in what we do, but we should look everywhere and at everything with a simple curiosity and an open mind. Next, I want to talk about we need to make a vow or a commitment to stop worrying and start loving. There are some statistics out there, and they say that 90% or more of the things we worry about never happen. So it looks like 90% of the time we waste worrying about something that really we shouldn't worry about. Instead, we could do something different. And I'm saying we need to commit ourselves to stop the worry and turn that time we would spend and devote to worrying to loving. Loving people more. Those are great things to do. I always made a commitment to myself. I don't know if I've ever shared it with my wife, but I said that my commitment is to love her more than she loves me. It would be a great challenge for me to love my wife more than she loves me. And I know she loves me dearly. She has to, because she's still with me. But I want to love her more and more every day. And I would rather take my time that I spend on worrying about things that will never happen, never occur, and convert that to a genuine love for my wife. And the same thing with my family and my relatives, my folks here at the center that I really take a lot of joy in seeing. Yesterday we had a great time together. We ate in a pavilion. We practiced safety under the COVID rules. Wore masks, but we still were able to enjoy ourselves. Next, it's believe this: it's possible to be at peace. If you ever woken up and you feel kind of restless, even though you just slept, your soul is restless, and you're longing for peace. Well, there's a way to be at peace. It's not, peace is sometimes fleeting. And I remember my first video I did here, good gracious, several months ago, maybe back in March, because I recall there were St. Patrick's Day decorations up. But back then, I talked about achieving peace. If you listen to The Economist and the financial advice giver, Dave Ramsey, he always closes his program when he's talking about financial peace. And I think we can talk about this, and not in the terms of finances, but in peace in general, that if you want to know peace, you must first know the Prince of Peace, and that's Jesus Christ. And I believe that with all my heart, that we can know peace by knowing Christ. I think that's what brings peace and solace to my soul. And this is not a sermon, by the way. This is just an encouraging message today. If you've managed to hang on this long into this morning's video broadcast. The next point I want to make is to love and not hate. It's not different from the other ones I talked about. Stop worrying and start loving. But this one is in that place of hating others. Try to love. And I know, again, I mentioned that we're in a politically charged climate still, as we're waiting on which way the presidential election is going to play out, what's going to happen. There's a lot of anger that's been stirring in a lot of people, but we can replace that with love, rather than being indifferent to love. We can embrace it. I think that of their base emotions, we know that there's fear is our base emotion, and from that we have hatred, envy, and all the bad things from our personalities are wrapped up in that. And the other base emotion is actually love. And from love, we get compassion and friendship and all these wonderful things that kind of are drafted from this base emotion of love. So we need to love instead of hate. The next one is embrace uncertainty. Now, I was in the military for a number of years, and the uncertainty of knowing where you're going, when you're getting deployed, if you're getting deployed, was always there. And after about a year or two at one assignment, you get to knowing that you're about to receive orders to go somewhere new. And instead of having the anxiety that accompanies moving to some unknown destination, we learn to embrace it. We learn to love this in this sense that life is a mystery, and even changes like that can be beautiful. And we went to some really desolate places in our trip, my wife and I traveling around, and because of that, we learned to love where we went, and we kind of bloomed where we were planted. Some of the most beautiful chapters of our lives really won't have a title until much later. We're experiencing those chapters now, and we can really rewrite or write that the way we want it. I remember many times, even after I left the military, I said I would never put a uniform on again and never move again. But I became a pastor. My wife and I both went to seminary, and we spent in that field about 14 years total. And I take that back; it's been more than that, but I'll say 14 for now. But we never knew where we were moving. Someplace we moved around because we were in a church that moves their pastors frequently, and we stayed at one place 2 years, one place at 1 year. Rest of them were 4 years. But with that, we spent a lot of time on the road, but we never knew where we were going. We didn't take the uncertainty of knowing where we were going in this way, is that it would gnaw at us and make us worry. Again, we embraced life as being a mystery, and every day, every new challenge, every new assignment was beautiful. But again, we need to all be open to what that next page is. And again, not knowing if there's a title to it just yet. Also want to say that we're all broken people. And Ernest Hemingway said this, that we are all broken people, and that's how light gets in. I think it's really amazing. That we are broken. If we admit that, we'll allow this light to come in. And he's talking about the light that is not just daylight. He's talking about the wonderful aspects of life and living, that we can understand that and freely acknowledge, with no reservations, that we are broken all inside and outside, every one of us. We are always worried about ourselves. We're concerned about others. Yes, all those things are true. We don't have it all together yet. Even as we grow older, we we think our lives are relatively settled, but there's always something else happening that will kind of put us off kilter just a little bit. But again, that's how light gets in. Another point here, this is my last point. When one door of happiness closes, another one opens. But often we look so long at the closed door that we do not even realize that another one has opened for us. Now, I have been in that world before. By the way, I just quoted Helen Keller. Again, and that's probably bears repeating, or is certainly worth it. When one door of happiness closes, another one opens. But often we look at the closed door for so long, we don't see the one that has been opened for us. Well, today I want us to really think about paying attention to where we are, and seeing that the world is not as dismal as maybe the news says it is. We shouldn't be changed by the world, but we should be wiser in a sense. But I want us all to be happier. And again, seeking true happiness and peace, as I mentioned, there's a purpose and a way, but knowing real peace. And I like to have some of that peace today. I would like to see that peace throughout the world, but between now and then, I'm working on this and taking care of family, making sure their needs are met, calling them as often as possible, shooting a text back and forth to the kids because that's how they function now. But I always end every text with "I love you." And so when you talk to your family next, remember those words. They're simple, easy to say, but I love you. And with that, we're going to close today. Hope you have a great Friday and a fantastic weekend. And God bless you all. I look forward to the day that we can all come together in our centers and see each other face to face. Have a good day.